You game on for just about anything or anything?
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, go for it.
We'll have
Here
some
we go.
fun. All right, so I'll do the intro. I'm still like working on how I do the start of interview shows. It always ends up fine though, so. Hi there, you wonderful unicorn, you. Justin here. If you've been struggling to break into the tech market, or perhaps you've already been there but you're looking for something new, and you want your dream job because you have talents and you want to let them shine, I've got an upcoming program that's for you. So if you've been wondering, maybe some resume tips and tricks can get you that next thing, or perhaps grad school could be right for you or not. Maybe you're wondering if better networking skills could help you tap the hidden job market, or perhaps you just want to drill down and get some clarity on what your dream job actually is. This program will be for you. Waitlist is open, but only until July 31st, so you don't want to miss out to be the first to find out about this program in detail, because seats are going to be very limited, because I want to focus on you and the others that are the amazing unicorns that you are, so that we can make sure we get you the dream job. Yep, even in this economy. So go to emotionsengineering.com/dream job to get on the wait list and learn more and be the first to find out. emotionsengineering.com/dream job. That's right, you're going to be farting rainbows soon enough. All right, welcome to the Engineering, Emotions, and Energy podcast. I'm your host, Justin Wink. Today's show, we have a fantastic guest, a longtime friend of mine. We have Rachel Koontz. Did I say that right? Because I knew her from a different name.
That's right.
That's how long. Yeah.
That's crazy.
So Rachel is a writer, published author, yoga teacher. I'm not done yet. She's also a master level Reiki practitioner from Northern California with experience practicing yoga for over a decade and 8 years teaching. She considers yoga to be a huge part of her wellness routine. She also incorporates energy work, meditation, running, strength training, and nutrition into her practice. Rachel has recently published several art, poetry, photography books. I own 2 of them. And also writes the award-winning blog Alive in the Fire. She is currently training for an ultra marathon, enjoying the trails of Northern California and the journey of discovering what's possible. Welcome, Rachel.
Woohoo! Thank you so much.
So how long have we known each other? I was trying to remember. I think it's probably close to the 7 years. I think it was kind of close to after you started becoming a yoga teacher. Is that right?
Yeah, it would have been right around that time. Which is wild. So much has evolved in 7 years.
Yeah, because we met at Leap Yoga, which is my favorite yoga studio. I even volunteer weekly when they're open. And I'm kind of curious what your take is on it, because I remember at the time I believe I was trying to date you. But I don't think it went. So I might have been still out of your league. This was before I started getting really into yoga and nutrition and stuff. So I was kind of curious what your take is like. Did we date, or were we just no? It was always friends. It was always friends.
I mean, I don't know. Did we go on a date? We might have.
That's a no, folks. That's a no.
Cutting right to the chase.
Well, we've kept in contact off and on. I think I was you had a sponsored yogi program. I think I still wear one of the t-shirt I got out of that because it's just so comfortable. Yeah. So if you go on Alive in the Fire and probably look at some of the old stuff from 6 years ago, maybe you'll find me on there.
Yeah, that program has definitely shifted and evolved over time too.
Oh, I bet. Just kind of you've shifted and evolved over time. So I believe it was kind of recent when you went kind of full time into yoga and helping people directly, because you had, I believe, a kind of a regular 9-to-5 type day job thing for quite a while, which is similar to my situation currently. Can you let us know kind of what kind of stuff you're doing and how you finally made the leap?
Sure. Yeah, so it's been kind of back and forth, through that 7-year period of always having some sort of freelance work going on. and stepping in and out of teaching more yoga classes. And so I actually am back on campus at Chico State working right now, which I was like a year ago as well. And, just wanted more like soulful work. So in addition to that, I've been, building my own classes, working on the book and some different book projects with folks, and, just trying to integrate like this professional experience that I've had over my, work life and the things that I'm passionate about. So like even right now with Chico State, I've been doing a weekly stretch Zoom class for people. So, just spending 15 minutes on a Monday morning, like, okay, let's get up from our desks and move around a little bit and, release stress and like, get grounded or whatever.
And how are people liking that?
They love it. I think, especially when you're working from home, you just kind of lose track of time sometimes and you're sitting for a long time. So just mixing that up and like, reconnecting with other people and realizing like, okay, I'm not the only one that struggles with, feeling stiff from sitting all day. It's been really cool.
And people underestimate the power of just like 10 or 15 minutes of movement. It's great if it's all at once, but it doesn't have to be all at once. Like, some people are just like, well, I'm used to doing my 60-minute or my 90-minute whatever, and that's closed or I can't fit it in. It's like, just fit in the 10 or 15-minute thing like Rachel's offering. It's fantastic.
It makes a huge difference. I even, I'll find myself getting sweaty just from doing little things, or, afterwards being like, wow, I feel so much better, just more awake, more energized, more focused. It really does go a long way. And I think, people have told me like they really appreciate how I'm consistently doing that kind of a thing. I think it's easy for people to do it like a couple times and then just kind of fall off and not come back to it. Whereas I'm always that person like, hey, do you want to stretch? Like I keep that in the front of my mind. And I think people appreciate that.
Yeah, and I love that you call it a stretch, which is so much more easy for people to relate to and get into, whereas yoga, depending on where people come from, what experience I might have, there can be a lot of baggage. Like, having been in the yoga, there's a lot of people that are into yoga because it's weird. Like, they're like, I want to be a weirdo and I don't want to do what everyone does. Even though it's like really a lot of it is just stretching at the physical level. There's all this other stuff to it, which is great if you want it, but like if you just come to stretch, like that's fantastic. Yeah,
that will work. Yep. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So I was curious about, being on Chico at a university, like that energy. Like, was that kind of inspiring to kind of like really reconnect with what you really wanted to do and kind of cut back? Because I know whenever, I go onto a campus, back when I would recruit, and even, now we have interns and I only deal with them virtually at work, like just the energy and the excitement and the like, I want to know this and I want to do this thing and I want to do that thing. It's so energizing and inspiring compared to the usual person that you might be interacting with at a corporate regular 40-hour a week type of a job.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. Being on campus and walking around, you can just feel that energy. And Chico State's campus is gorgeous. Like the grounds themselves are really pretty and the buildings look really nice. There's a creek running through, which I've always found to be like such a peaceful spot to just go sit or take a walk, if I'm on my lunch or whatever. And so, I think being in a space where you feel energized and, motivated by what's going on around you, that makes a huge difference. And I've always felt that way in terms of work environments, like the way the space is, you can feel that.
Yeah. I have a really interesting Chico related story, and I'll put it under the category of sometimes you have to travel a long ways away to realize you already had something great close by.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually about 5 years ago. I was in Beijing. I had my first sabbatical, and I wanted to see the
Mm-hmm.
Great Wall. And I went to kind of this section of Beijing that looks like very traditional, like, from like 100, 200 years. And I found a brew pub there.
Hmm.
And I ended up talking to an Irishman and a German,
Oh.
and they were both there on business to kind of try to get like beer making and breweries into the Chinese market. And I asked the German brewmaker, I'm like, in the entire world, what's your favorite brewery? He said, you know where this is going. He said, Sierra Nevada Brewery in Chico is hands down the most amazing brewery ever. And this is from a German brewmeister.
Shout out to Ken Grossman and that whole team, right? Like, that's awesome.
Yeah. And I had never gone before. And so when I got back, I was like, okay, got to go, and went. And it is an amazing experience. The Sierra Nevada tour, just the education and the quality. And I'd say even if you don't drink beer, just kind of the passion and the quality and the knowledge, it's worth it, even if you're not into beer drinking, which I'm not as much as I used to, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely part of the Chico experience. I've never been to their Oktoberfest, but that's another big, draw at the fall time of year. And people get all dressed up. It's a really fun event that they do.
Feeling overwhelmed by the daily grind? Imagine if you could pause, reset, and truly connect with a calmer, more fulfilled you. It's not just a dream. It's absolutely possible. Hi, I'm Justin, and I invite you to discover the life-changing techniques in my book, Engineered to Love. Right now, I'm offering a free chapter complete with guided audios that have already helped so many people find peace amidst the chaos. These aren't just any techniques. They're transformative practices designed to help you love yourself and engage deeply with the present moment, without even having to close your eyes to the world around you. So join us at engineeredtolove.com/sample and access your free guided session. It's time to bust the busyness and embrace the joy, ease, and love in your everyday life. Don't wait. Start your journey to a more relaxed and recharged you today, because you deserve to live a life you love. Visit engineeredtolove.com/sample. See you there. Yeah, one thing I found really cool about, because they talked about their Oktoberfest beer, was that every year it's completely new. Like it's
really,
yeah. It's like kind of custom made. That if you were to somehow compare this year to last year's, it'll be different because it's.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. I think that's one of the things that we're starting to treasure more in an overly mass-produced type of environment, where that hey, this is unique, this is special, this is kind of a one-off, which is kind of one of the things that is so great about having a yoga teacher or someone to go over stuff in person, is because it's a unique one-off experience. Like it's kind of like, yeah, you can get the DVD, but are you having a shared experience?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because how you are when you walk into that room that day is unique, right? Like the DVD, that teacher is always going to be that person they were on the day they filmed it,
Yeah. Like the way I got into yoga was through P90X. Do you remember those?
Yeah.
The Tony Horton. I just remember that being a real shock to my ego, because like there's always like four people. Tony Horton's one of them, and then there's usually at least one woman, and I could like never even keep up with the woman. Like they're just all ridiculous.
Those yoga classes are killer, and I actually know a couple people who have had injuries from P90X yoga. So
yeah, I believe it.
Be wary. If you've never tried yoga, I don't know that that's the starting place.
No, I would not recommend that to start for yoga. It was mine, and I was like, wow, this is so hard, and I don't feel like I know what I'm doing. And I eventually like asked a friend. I was like, hey, she was a woman, so I was like, hey, could you bring me with? I don't want to be one of those weird guys at the yoga studio. Like, would you bring me in? Because this was now like 15 years ago, when it
Wow.
mostly was, dudes had to be pretty weird to show up to a yoga class. Like now it's way more common, which is fantastic. That it's like not a big deal. I remember a couple of years ago, I was talking to a dude, and I'm like, "Do you do yoga much?" He's like, "Oh yeah, I'm doing it to get ready. I'm a what was he? He was like, I do like Olympic like speed skate. It was like speed skiing, like it's like speed cross country,
Wow.
but it's kind of like skating." And he's like, "Yeah, no, I need my hips and my glutes all loosened up." And so,
Yeah.
yeah, man, I do yoga this time of year. And I was like, okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Any athlete. I mean, it's such a useful thing to add to your routine for sure.
Yeah. So I did want to talk about your book. It's like I don't know how to categorize it. It's Inner Fire. I think
Hmm.
you released it in May. It's got like some really like, you might think it's an insult, but I don't think it's like a great like bathroom coffee
Yep.
table book,
Yeah.
because it's just like you can just pick it and enjoy like the beautiful pictures or the inspirational stuff. And there was like a couple of quotes that I really um so I don't know what the page number is, but it's your
Yeah. There actually aren't page numbers.
yeah. So
I
it's
almost put them in and then I said, you know what? I'm just going to leave it out. It kind of gives like a little
it's
something
different.
to
So
it.
I got to it's a picture of you. It looks like someone's like, "What is it like when a chicken crosses the road?" And it looks like you were trying to show them. I know you're doing a yoga pose, but it's
I'm in, yeah, kind of a
um
prayer pose in the middle of the street.
yeah. And so the line I really like is it's, "You don't have to hide, you don't have to fear your emotions, you can forgive yourself for the times you have been numb, you can learn to stay open." And just that forgiving yourself for the numbing out was because like sometimes that's the hardest thing, is like forgiving ourselves. Like in I do a perfect life guided meditation, and there's a part of forgiveness,
Mm.
and I learned a lot of it from Vishen Lakhiani, the founder of Mind Valley. And when I heard him talking, he reminded, like, yeah, you don't just forgive other people, forgive yourself. Like sometimes that's the most important thing. And it's like, yeah, there's things where I'm like, "Oh, Justin, you asshole!" Like, and so I got to do the forgiveness practice, and I I can definitely do some more practice on the being numb, because it's sort of it's a tough, especially lately with a lot of change and pain. Like what are some ways that you've found helpful in like practicing forgiveness, whether like, for yourself or, forgiving other people? What have you found that has, helped you get some of maybe the most intense things?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And I do think that just that concept of self-forgiveness can sometimes be the harder part of it for me. Like it's easier for me to give and see someone else and think like, oh wow, they made a mistake, or there was something that went wrong, and that's okay for them. But then when I look at myself, like I can just be so critical sometimes.
Yeah, because where really you're coming from, whereas them, you might go, well, somebody was so mean to them, and so now
Hmm.
they're just lashing out, or they were never educated on, how to treat people properly. But yeah, like with ourselves, is like, I know everything that I've ever known, as far as I know.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and I think a big part of it is just like being able to look at those so-called dark parts of you, or the negative things, the emotions that you wish you didn't have, like you feel angry or you feel depressed, and just being able to get really honest with yourself. Like when I can do that and say like it's okay for me to have these parts, that's when it becomes okay to forgive like things that I wouldn't do, or wished had gone differently. I think it's that moment when you can really integrate and say like I am this whole person, and that's okay.
Yeah,
That's it's very difficult because you do kind of want to just ignore like those dark.
yeah. I love how you phrase it, of there's these parts of us, Because that sometimes is the whole thing is confusing, that there's a part that's depressed or there's a part that's angry, and confusing that for the whole.
Yeah.
That you know, the I am statement is so powerful in so many ways. To say I am sad or I am angry, like that is forever in the past, forever in the future, forever now. Like there is no beginning or end to the I am and whatever you put after it. Like
Good
so if it's
point.
so if it's like, well, there's a part of me that's really depressed, like right now,
Hmm.
it puts it like in a box, and then it's like, well, okay, so there's other parts and there's other times. So I kind of really like that way of looking
Yeah.
at it.
I learned that from a therapist a while back. And he talked about it like that. He talked about how sometimes people would do work where it's like, it's almost like they're sitting in these different chairs, right? And so you line up like all these emotional parts of you, or, all these selves, the self that goes to work in the morning and the self that is in this relationship, and, the yoga teacher self, the child self, and you're able to sit with all of those aspects, not ignoring any one of them, not putting any guilt on any of them. It was a very interesting exercise. We didn't do that specifically, but just the thought of it, I was like, ooh, that would be very powerful. That would be helpful to sit down with all the Rachels and say, like, okay, how are you doing? What do you need today?
Yeah, and it's like none of the Rachels are bad. It's just some are more useful at other times than others. Like,
Yeah, and he talked about actually how, some of those aspects of you are what have kept you alive during these extremely difficult moments, right? Like when
oh
we
yeah,
get defensive and guarded, it's that version of us that gets us through whatever that, you know, absolutely chaotic, terrifying moment is. And without that, we wouldn't have made it. So it's like, in a way, you almost want to celebrate that too, you know.
yeah, like it that whole thing kind of it really kind of leads into compassion and how it can be helpful with compassion of like when someone's behaving. And again, also if we put the mirror on ourselves of like, oh well, this must be useful in some way, some protective. Maybe it's not the most appropriate now, but maybe this person doesn't know any better. Like my parents visited this past weekend. I think it was like the first time in a few years. And I kind of I knew, but it really was apparent. Um, my mom cannot like give an opinion to save her life. Like practically, literally. I took them up to Coloma, which if you're not from Northern California, it's where water begins. So we have rivers around the greater Sacramento area, and Coloma is like up into the foothills, and it's a lot smaller. So the roads are going to be windy and steep and stuff. And I kind of know that my mom gets car sick, but I
Uh-oh.
wanted to show anyway. Um, and she was basically like doubled over in pain, like looking awful. And it's like, hey, mom, do you want us to, quickly get you back to the hotel? Are you okay? And she's like, oh, it doesn't really matter. Either whatever's fine with you. I don't want to be a bother. It's just,
You're like, you
um,
look like you're not happy at all right now.
yeah. So it's just like we're taking you back to the hotel. But I'm like, that comes from, there's certain people, certain situations where you don't ever want to be the squeaky wheel. You always
Hmm.
want to go with the flow, because to go against any flow, no matter how awful it is, could be dangerous. And so I kind of just try to remind myself that, hey, that's just the way she is. And then I also realized like, oh, that's why I'm so damn sensitive to other people's like emotions and ways of being, which is really helpful, but also can be really painful too. Like
Totally.
being very in tune with other people's. Um, well, so kind of being a energy worker with Reiki, that's kind of like part of the the deal is like tuning into other people.
Hmm.
How how do you tune in enough to be helpful without taking stuff on and getting sucked into other people's pain, hurt, misery, depression? the parts that we have said, they're not bad, but they're not always the
Yeah.
most useful. And we probably don't want more of other people's.
Right. Right. We do need to be wary of that. For me, it's definitely been a process. I think over time, the more I practice being able to differentiate my energy from someone else's and being able to keep good boundaries, the more I practice that, the better I get at it. And one thing for me, as far as Reiki goes, is keeping a good ritual with how I open and close a session with someone. So really before the session, checking in with myself, making sure I'm grounded, letting go of any expectations, and then opening up the session, hopefully from a somewhat neutral, balanced kind of state. And then afterwards, really like closing the session, making sure to set that. And even, I'll even say it out loud. Like we usually end the session with 3 deep breaths just to kind of bring it back into a physical aspect or whatever. And so, and in a sense too, like with Reiki, it's easy when you're doing a session to have clear boundaries on like, okay, this is the beginning, the middle, and the end. Now I'm going to go this way. Now you're going to go that way. I think what's more important is like out, in the world, in life, how do you deal with people's energy? And right now is literally the perfect example of that. This whole COVID thing, like people's energy is way different than it was. The sense of fear, the sense of frustration and anger is definitely like heightened. And it's just so important to spend time clearing your own energy, right?
Yeah.
For me, like being in nature has been the biggest help. Just getting outside and feeling the ground underneath my feet, looking up at the sky and just putting it out there and saying like, okay, I'm now clearing my energy field. I do that all the time. And I know it sounds kind of silly and almost like too easy, but it is just that, if you're able to spend a moment in quiet and like clear your field, you're going to be back to more of a neutral space.
I love that. I used to be really big on things having to make sense and be totally logical. I was also miserable. And as I become more open to fuck it, I don't like, I'll try it and it works. It works. I don't care why. Like
there you go.
The most damaging question that most people can ever ask is why? Why am I unhappy? Why doesn't this person like me?
Right.
You can get the answer and it's not going to fix anything.
Right. And you can waste so much energy in that trying to grasp onto it,
Yeah. So like how questions are way more productive. Like I think I've heard that like the quality of it might be a Jim Rohn quote or something from someone, but like the quality of your life is based solely on the quality of the questions you're asking.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
I heard recently, you'll be in the same place this time next year, other than the people you've met and the books you've read.
Interesting.
Which I thought was cool. Yeah.
Well, speaking of books, there's another. I got another favorite quote that I'd like to. Well, so this one is it's like you're doing a stretch, and I think you're trying to see if you're sure or not. I don't know if you use degree or secret, strong enough for a man, pH balance for a woman. But the line is, let grief be a doorway, let purpose pour from your pain. And to me, because it reminded me of a concept I recently learned of, because often so many people have such a hard time knowing like what they want. And I know that for me for the longest time. And sometimes I'll forget how easy it is to just, it's like, well, what do you want? Like, I don't know. Cause going back to my mom, like she never showed me how to say like, I want this, I want that. I didn't have an example in that.
Right.
But most of us are really good at complaining and knowing what we don't want. And if you use that, what it's usually you complain because you don't want that. And so what you want is the opposite. And in some ways I have used that practice of like, did like a winter at a Macy's, and I was like, I don't want this. I'm going to go to school. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's very powerful to just, as long as you're learning more things you don't want, you're getting closer to maybe what you ultimately do want. Sometimes we get hung up on, oh, I gotta know the perfect thing right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so this just like purpose pour from your pain. I was like, yeah, pain is a good indicator of you move away from it. Like you don't keep your hand on the hot stove, like you move away. Like
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think like the struggles that you go through can fuel you to do things, or you can be in a moment where like something is really difficult and you can look back and say, okay, but remember that one time when I felt this much pain, like I can do this now because I know what I've been through.
so in your own life, have there been any like poignant, painful moments that you look back and go like, that was awful, but I'm so glad it happened because this is what came next?
Yeah. The one I don't talk about super often, which you kind of hinted at in the very beginning. So I went through a divorce, and that's why my name changed.
Ah,
And uh, yeah, I got married right out of college, and we were very young. Um, and I always knew because we met out in the Chicago area when I was in college. I always knew I wanted to come back to California and be near my family and be here. And I don't think that ever would have happened had I stayed in that relationship. So it was definitely a very pivotal, very painful, time in my life, but it literally opened the door to everything that I have now. So it was a necessary thing to go through.
and then there's also paperwork involved. So it's like, these,
Terrible paperwork. And honestly, it gave me an appreciation for my name that I never had before that. I'll never change my name again.
yeah.
And, when I got my name back, that was a huge moment for me. It felt very, very cool to know like, okay, this is who I am and I'm keeping this,
Yeah. Yeah. Cause, recently got married and my wife, she kept her maiden name.
Did
And
you?
yeah, I don't even know if it was very well thought out. It was kind of just more like looking at the forms to get the official marriage certificate. And
Didn't check
she's,
that box.
yeah, she was kind of like, I don't know if I want to go through that. And I'm like, I decided I didn't want to change my name to anything because we were kind of like, well, what if we just picked a brand new name? And
Ooh, yeah.
I think we're thinking maybe like Harbinger or something, like be Justin Harbinger, Alexa Harbinger.
Ooh,
But it's a bit like, well, does that actually change anything, or is that kind of running away? Like, just
yeah.
this part of me is who I am, and let's work with that. And
Yeah, you can assign a lot of meaning or not to a name, and that experience of changing your name, it does actually bring up quite a lot. And I remember, being in a new job and being like, well, gosh, the timing is so inconvenient. Everybody knows me with this name. They're gonna have to give me a new email address. Like
yeah,
just kind of this awkwardness of like, it gets people asking you that question of like, well, what happened? Why are you changing your name? So are you ready to tell that story? It's kind of
yeah. Well, and
interesting.
it is definitely kind of interesting that like for the longest time, forever, it was just assumed like, well, the woman just takes on the name, like
Yeah.
what there's no other options. And
Right.
um, then I think there was a while where there was the hyphenation period of time where people became dashy dash,
Hmm.
whoever. Um, and
Which can get a little bit long, I think.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. It's like, I'm glad you didn't want to, but like, can we shorten this down? Like, I got a life to live too. Like, I can't spend it all writing your name out, like, and trying to
Yeah.
find out where the dash is on this keyboard or this phone.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I'm kind of happy where it's a little bit like, hey, you can kind of do what you want. Like,
Hmm.
it. Well, I don't know, but maybe some people are a little bit more, because there's the love part of marriage, but then there's also the business contract, and
Yeah.
I see them as very distinct things.
Mhm.
Because to me it was like, well, I didn't need the contract stuff, but it's like, well, there is like a partnership that is, it's the finances, and well, let's treat it like we're going into business, because we are, whether we want to or not. So
Right.
there's a lot of paperwork there.
There's a lot of factors, a
Yeah.
lot of complexity and depth.
Yeah. Yeah. But I don't know. I'm always, it's kind of like, well, because we did a prenup before getting married.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And it like made us talk about a lot of things. Like there were some tough conversations, but
I bet. Yeah.
yeah. Well, like one of them is just like trying to negotiate, like, well, when we break up, what's the payment structure and all that stuff. And
Oh,
yeah, which if you don't do that, then you just kind of get what you get based on state law and maybe whatever the judge is. But at least this is like, it can come from a place of love, and you can kind of decide like, well, yeah, how would I like you taken care of? How would I like you taken care of? And
yeah.
I much preferred that than like, well, let's not know, and kind of because we're afraid to even talk about it.
Yeah, that to me is a very mature way of looking at it. And I think, it takes out some of the uncertainty in a way.
Yeah. And I mean,
But
but it was hard for me.
hopefully it would bring you closer together, right?
Oh
Having
yeah.
those conversations.
Yeah. But it, like you said, it takes maturity. And like, I was 38 and I'm trying to have these kinds. So I'm like, I can't imagine, a 25-year-old or younger man,
yeah,
or even most men, like age is not a good gauge of maturity. So in my experience. So yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you made it back to California.
Thank you. I am too.
And so I know that you're getting ready to do a 10-day challenge starting August 1st, 2020, to kind of help people get back on track, which I know it feels like every month and a half I'm like, shit, what happened? Where am I? Like, how did I get here? Like, okay,
How did I get here? Yeah.
yeah. And well, ultimately it's always on me. I get, I'm trying to practice like I'm 100% responsible for my life. Yet there are external things, and sometimes I'm not keeping up with them as much as I would like. I'm not going out and saying I clear my energy. So what's this? Which I'm going to try out more. I'm going to try that out. So tell me about this this program. What inspired it, and what are you going to bring to people?
Yeah. So the 10-day challenge. I've thought about doing something like this for a long time, and in the last week, I just felt very compelled to get it going and do it now. I have a lot of friends and students in my yoga classes talking about the same kind of themes of like, I'm not sleeping well. I'm just not feeling like myself. I haven't been doing yoga. Like, this little sense of guilt and shame around that. Of like, I should have been doing that. And that question of like, what happened? How did I get from here to there?
Yeah.
I think that is totally normal. That is very understandable considering where we are with the quarantine stuff and how, there's a lot of back and forth and what's going to happen next. We get stressed out by all of that, and that makes sense. And I think like it would just be very easy to say, okay, 2020 was a shit year. Like there's nothing I got done that year or whatever. Like we'll try again in 2021. And I think that that's bullshit. Like that's kind of pop out, now's the time to just get back on track. And really like the goal, I think for me with folks is just pick one thing. Like pick one thing you want to do for 10 days, whether it's get up at a certain time or actually get to your yoga mat. Pick something so small that you have no excuse not to do it. And then as you build that momentum and as you feel good about doing it, you'll get this sense of like, okay, I can do this. And then you just apply that to whatever else needs that. Because that's kind of how I've been approaching the whole, isolation situation of like, okay, let me look at my life and what are these things that I've been procrastinating on and saying I'm going to do, but it's taken me however long to actually finally do them. Publishing the book was one of those where it was like, I've been close for months. And then I was like, okay, well now I have time. Like, let's just make it happen. Right now I'm doing a 21-day wake up at 4:30 a.m. challenge.
Wow.
Today was day 5, and it's getting easier, but it's really easy for me not to be consistent with what time I go to bed. It'll be like, if I didn't get enough sleep the last couple days, I'll sleep a little bit more, and I'll just kind of have it, go back and forth.
Are you like more naturally a night owl type?
No, I over the years have definitely become more of a morning person.
Yeah.
And I love those early morning hours when it's just quiet,
Quiet, you can do anything. Like I've definitely become more of a morning person than I was. Like I used to just be kind of like I don't know, regular hour type of person, but now it's like it's just nothing, for the most part, nothing good happens late at night. It's just,
Yeah.
it's nonsense. Like, it's like, I remember going out to bars and being out till, last call and stuff. And it's like, I started looking back. I'm like, well, did anything magical ever happen after midnight? No, nothing. Yeah. Anything good that was going to happen was it was usually locked in by midnight. Like maybe, but it was kind of like, you knew the trajectory, like you'd probably identified, a certain special someone, and then maybe it continued, but it was very rare where it's like 1:30 and it's like, there's my dream boat. Like, hello.
Yeah. That's a great point. It's usually locked in by midnight, so you might as well set your schedule back.
Yeah. So,
but yeah, the 10-day challenge, I'm super excited about it. I can already see the group of people that's showing up and how a lot of us are dealing with the same struggles. And I think just getting ourselves together and really like being able to feel that sense of, wow, there's other people going through the same thing, and here's what they're doing, and it's working, So it's really just hopefully a very energizing experience as a group, and then also like an opportunity to be vulnerable with yourself and just look at like, what do I need to work on right now, or what would help me feel better, like why sit around and not feel great? If 2020 has been kicking your ass, like what are you waiting for? Like
yeah. Well, when you put it that way, it sounds like I've been silly, and I guess I have been. So I know if people sign up by Tuesday, I believe the 28th, they get a special price. Like, I don't know, the stuff I see that you're offering, it's like ridiculous. Like just probably one of the things that you're offering like is worth the price of admission. So, and I know you roll with a pretty good crew too. So you're getting access to that community as well. So I'd encourage people, I think, go to aliveinthefire.com, and I think it's under yoga offerings and 10-day retreat. We'll put it in the show notes too. I signed up because I was like, I already see like one or two things that like, even if I can't make everything, like I'll still have, gotten my money's worth. Cause it's like, I'm working on launching something to help people get their dream job. And I kind of still working on my yoga teacher training, 300-hour one, which that's been interesting.
Oh, you're doing a 300-hour. I didn't realize.
I was like halfway through a 300-hour yoga teacher training.
With who?
With Stacy and Karen from Leap, which I'm sure
they're awesome.
They are awesome. Like they're like very different styles, which so people that are looking for yoga teacher trainings, I've just gotten lucky, like getting like great, pairs of teachers that like really complement each other. But I would recommend most people do your research on who they are, what their styles are, so that you get complimentary. Because you're spending a lot of money, you're spending, more importantly, a lot of your time. And although there are kind of some baseline requirements for Yoga Alliance teacher training, there's a lot of leeway.
Oh, it varies. Yeah.
And
if
then
you don't do your research, you could end up with a training that really isn't what you're looking for.
Yeah. Like I've even seen people doing like, we're doing a virtual yoga teacher training. And it's like, I don't know, to me, I'm like, if you actually want to teach yoga, that's an immediate no-go. But if you just want like that personal development type thing, like, it's probably, so again, it's like, know what you want, look into it.
Are they continuing your training right now, or they put things on hold?
So we've been doing stuff like virtually, but they just gave us a schedule of like how they're like, we're going to like do some live stuff in the park in like a month or two, and hopefully it's more safe-ish and we can do it safe, but outside. So they have a pathway for us to complete, and actually get, because we've already got a lot of in-person time. So I'm excited to be able to finish that up, and I'll be a 500-hour certified.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's really great.
Yeah. I've decided that I don't really want to be a yoga teacher though.
It would be interesting to know what percentage of people who do a yoga teacher training actually end up going on to teach. I'm always curious about that, because I think it's a worthwhile life experience.
Absolutely.
If yoga has been like a big part of your life, doing the teacher training will absolutely transform just how you see it and understand it. And there's really no pressure to go on and teach, but.
And actually, it's really fucking hard to be a teacher. Like, it's almost like being a musician. Like, it's a passion project, I'd say. And it's like, you have to be either really business savvy or somehow blow up as a superstar to, make it a good livelihood.
Yeah, I honestly, at this point, do not recommend it as your career choice. Like, I don't recommend it as the one thing paying your bills. I mean, I know a few folks who have been able to make that work, but
there's ways you can.
There's just a lot of factors, that are keeping people from doing that.
Like it requires.
And who knows what the new landscape is going to be now that gyms and studios are being impacted. We've had, I think, 2 in Chico that closed pretty quickly. And so, if your business savvy is not there, like, don't open a studio, because that's a unique business,
Yeah, it was kind of like, maybe it was like a month before the lockdown stuff. Me and a friend, well, her name was actually Rachel as well. We went and we looked at a yoga studio that was kind of like up for sale.
Really?
And we were just kind of like, this looks like it would be a lot of work, and we both still have full-time jobs. No, this is not for us right now. And I'm, I don't know what happened. But definitely glad we did not buy in at that time, because I know even, very well established, super successful studios are, having a hard time.
It comes down to energy too, from what I've seen. When the studio owners are very present and invested, like time-wise and energy-wise, there's a difference than when the owner is kind of absent. So that would be hard to work and then also run the studio.
Yeah. So no yoga studio ownership for you in the.
I've never really had that as like, my plan. And I've had a few opportunities where it almost could have been a thing, but I'm glad that,
Are you more of a traveler type?
I like to travel. I haven't traveled as much lately, and I'm hopeful that we can get back to a world where that's easier to do. But
same here. I mean, we got a couple trips that we're hoping can happen at the end of the year, beginning of next. We'll find out. But I've been missing travel. So, any last things before we wrap up?
I don't think so. I just am very appreciative of the chance to connect and be a part of this. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, and appreciate it. And again, go check out aliveinthefire.com, check out the yoga programs, and sign up by Tuesday, July 28th, if you want to get the super duper, like, you're seriously, you're missing out if you don't sign up. It's a no-brainer. Just go do it. But if you catch it late, go still sign up, because it starts August 1st. And if it's way late, sorry, you missed out. You got to subscribe to this podcast and make sure you're listening. So there, I think we helped ourselves out there. All right.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks, Rachel. The podcast, I created it at the end of last year, because I kind of wanted to be able to share a lot of the stuff I've learned over the years through yoga, meditation, neuro-linguistic programming type stuff. And so just kind of a way to share with people, ways they can sort of improve their lives, and especially tech workers. So at the beginning of the year, I started my emotions engineering to help tech workers put passion and purpose back in their life. And been riding the ride, did a 10-day meditation challenge, and now I'm focusing on helping people find their dream job and not have to just settle for something that just pays, which I'm sure is something you can probably relate to.
Oh yeah, that's like the ultimate search right there.
Yeah.